Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our year-long journey for family child care centers on promoting language and literacy across the ages using Anchor books. At Cox Campus, we provide a platform for training and also for connection. We strive to ensure that it is rewarding, that as you participate in the Cox Campus modules, you're able to make connections and you feel empowered, like the sessions or the modules really relate to the work that you're doing, that they're clear, and they really help you strive to secure better futures for the children that you serve. Additionally, we want to ensure that the Cox campus is a safe environment, that you feel a place of safety, acceptance, and you feel very welcomed as a part of this community. And lastly, it's essential. We want to make sure that our work is rooted in solid research. And so as you go onto Cox Campus, you'll see that we are updating training courses. And that's as the research evolves or is added to, we're staying on top of things and making sure that the science is clear and that the things that we present to you all is actually something that can be actualized or is actionable. So this is our core values. This is the Cox Campus way. So thank you for being a part of Cox Campus. And if you're not yet a member of Cox Campus, we invite you to join the Cox Campus. You can create your membership today by going to www.coxcampus.org. Remember that the registration is free. All of the modules are free and they will continue to be free. So you have access to them at your will. They are self-paced. So go on Cox Campus, check out the training modules, and also look at the community blogs while you're there and the other resources that we provide. And now that we know who's in the room, we're going to spend some time just introducing ourselves.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Michelle. I am one of your facilitators for today. I've been in early education for 23 years and with Rollins for 8 years. So I love to read, to garden, and I am really excited to get to learn with all of you this morning about how we can really incorporate language and literacy across multiple age levels in homes.
Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jana Bacon. I am from Bogota, Colombia. I work as a bilingual facilitator at Rollins. I have worked as a teacher for about 17 years in Colombia and here in preschool and elementary. Also, I have 2 beautiful daughters at home, and I've been supporting family care providers for about 3 years, and I'm so excited to be here today with you.
And I am Alice Oliver. I am a birth through 5 facilitator with Rollins. I have been in early childhood for about 18 years. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'm always looking forward to learning something new, so I just read everything. And most importantly, I'm a mother, which really led me down the path to early childhood education and just ensuring that every child has access to language and literacy and all of the key areas or core areas of development. One thing that I love in all of my reading is a good quote. And so I came across this quote and it really embodied what my hopes are for all of us today. And it says that in learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn, by Phil Collins. And so I am excited to learn and grow with each of you today. And today we really want to focus on, again, the Anchor book. And so our goal is that as we review the Anchor books, the what and why of it, and how to integrate teaching and planning around it, that you'll gain a better understanding of what an Anchor book is, and then how to incorporate an Anchor book, the planning of an Anchor book and teaching of it in your lesson plan. And then we also want you to gain knowledge about how to use a bubble map to create takeaway activities for home, and then even the ones that you're going to be working on with your children in your care. So we'll do a bubble map activity at the end of this session, or towards the end, I would say. And it'll be yours to keep. So at the Cox campus, we use our everything that we do, as I mentioned earlier, is research based, but we also focus on the whole child. So we use an essential elements approach. There are 9 essential elements. The first is a safe and responsive climate. We want to make sure that children and families feel safe, the children feel cared for, and that their needs are being responded to. We want to make sure that it is culturally responsive and a preserving environment. We and focus on consistent routines, rituals, and transitions. And then we want to make sure that we are partnering with children as conversational partners. We do that using an anchor book or planning and teaching around an anchor book. We have a focus on emergent literacy. And then we spend time making sure that we're constantly observing and monitoring children's progress. We want to know how they're doing and how to plan activities to enrich their skills. We have intentional supports for dual language learners. And then last but not least, we have a strong partnership with the families. So you partner with families through our whole ecosystems approach. And so these are our 9 essential elements. And today we're going to be focusing on element 5, integrated teaching around an anchor book.
So when we're talking about an ecosystem, I want you to think about all these elements in a pond that all thrive to make sure this, pond is working really well. So thinking about elements, that's what we're going to be talking today of planning and teaching around an anchor book. And why this is important, why we need to be thinking about this element is because as a teachers, what we want to do is create and make connections across the day that are going to be supporting children to develop their comprehension and their vocabulary. Also, we're thinking about the critical thinking skills and word knowledge. This practice, like planning and teaching around an anchor book, it helps us to create different opportunities for kids to connect to themselves, to each other, and their world. Also provides the opportunity to practice new vocabulary in a meaningful ways. Also helps to express themselves, asking more questions, help them to communicate their ideas, and advocate for themselves and others. When we're thinking about anchor books, we need to think about many options because we want to make sure kids can see themselves with these books. And not only themselves, but also they can see their families, their cultures, their communities. And we believe these books are going to help kids to transform their world. So that's why it is important to talk about anchor books, planning and teaching around anchor book. So now we are going to think about just what I say, what it is important, planning and teaching around anchor book. And I want you to think what resonates with you regarding this. And our wonderful colleague Trina, she's gonna drop up a link in her chat, and you're gonna click on it because we're gonna have something that is called Jamboard. Jamboard is this interactive tool that we have to know what we're thinking about this. So just go to your chat, and there's gonna be a link. You're going to click on it, and you're gonna type what resonates with you. If it's something tricky, if maybe you don't have a computer and you have a cell phone, and you cannot open the link, just drop it in the chat. But what you're going to be doing after you click on the link is you're going to go to the sticky note option. If you can see it here, that Trina is showing us, you click on that option, and then you will see the sticky note, and you're going to type your idea? What resonates with you about this anchor book? And then you save it, and all we're going to be able to see our thoughts. Again, if it's difficult for you, if you don't have the time and the technology, just drop it in the chat. And let us know what resonates with you about Anchor Book and why it is important. Let's just take a few minutes. Let me check the chat. Okay, I see some people is using their cell phone. I mean, you can definitely use it during the cell phone, but sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult. Still, let's use the chat. Let's wait. I can share with you my thoughts about, planning and teaching around anchor books. And the first time that I thought about an anchor book is like, as a teacher, you read many books. And I wasn't that intentional with a book. Okay, I see how we can use differently, how we can use different vocabulary. And we're going to be talking about vocabulary from books. I see an anchor book can generate comprehension, and we discuss the story with children. That because we want to also help them to develop that critical thinking, right? What else we see? Talisha, if you can download it, don't worry. You can type in the chat using your cell phone. Don't worry.
In the chat, someone dropped in that what resonates is the approach helps children make connections to themselves, each other, and the world around them.
Thank you. Yes, because today we're going to be talking about connections and why those connections are so meaningful for kids, because we want to be intentional. Anybody else?
There's something else here in the chat, Diana. The anchor books are books that are constantly revisited for different purposes.
Yes. We know repetition is good for kids. So one of our suggestions is to read the anchor book several times during the week. And we're going to be talking why.
And someone mentions that it's making them feel comfortable and loved.
Yes, and then it's that we go back to, making sure when we're choosing an anchor book, we're going to bring their culture, their family, their community. They can see themselves.
In addition, it also helps build relationships between the educator and children with each other. Someone is sharing.
Yes.
And builds confidence.
Man, this is so amazing. Beautiful thoughts about planning and teaching around anchor books. It seems such a well-rounded way to teach children. Yes.
And then lastly, someone says, it seems like such a well-rounded way to teach children. It can help with self-identity, language, social, the arts, and so much more.
Yes. So that is why it is so important to teach and plan around an anchor book. So I think we got it, we know the importance. So we need to move. We can move to the next slide. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what is an anchor book. And I want you to think about, as a teachers, we know we have our agenda, right? The things that we need to talk to kids, the things that they need to learn. So think about that main topic or thing that you're going to be talking for a week, right? So now think of a book that you're going to be connecting to that main book, main topic. So for example, if we're going to be talking about nutrition, we can use the ugly vegetables, right? because that book connects to that. Maybe if we're going to be talking about friendship, we can use A Letter to Amy. But if maybe we want to talk about community helpers, we can use the book In a Village by the Sea, right? So an anchor book is the book that we're going to be using to anchor everything throughout the week, right? Because we're going to be connecting all the pieces. And when we say all the pieces is from that book, we're going to be choosing a specific vocabulary that we're going to be using every day, because we want to provide kids opportunities to listen to that vocabulary, but also to use it. And when we say how they're going to be using it is when we talk about connected activities. So think about the anchor book. There's going to get everything: vocabulary, activities. And when we say connected activities, it can be everything. It can be morning meeting activity. It can be a small activity. It can be outdoor activities. So that is an anchor book, the book that we're going to use to center everything around. So now we can go to the next slide. So why plan around an anchor book? Because an anchor book is going to help to develop more meaningful language. More meaningful learning, because we want to be intentional and we want to provide multiple opportunities to kids to explore that main idea, concepts, and vocabulary. Remember, we want to support all these processes and help them to develop that language. So now we're going to talk about anchor books across ages, right? We cannot read the same book to a 3 years old than the same book that we're going to be using with a 3 years old to an infant. So when we talk an anchor book, we are looking for sophisticated stories that are going to have rich vocabulary, right? But also we want to pair some books with nonfiction. So imagine we have an anchor book and a nonfiction book. And let's say the book that we're going to have is, let's go back to The Ugly Vegetables. That is a sophisticated, that's going to be the anchor book. And we're going to pair it with a book that is going to be showing kids pictures of real vegetables, pictures of real fruits, because we want kids to identify what is real and what is not real. But again, an anchor book is a book that has rich vocabulary, that has a nice story, and kids can see themselves. Yes, that is a book that we're going to call anchor book. So now, if you remember, I say something about vocabulary is with that anchor book, we're going to be choosing some words. Think about 3 to 5 words, depending on the ages. And you're going to be thinking, but what type of vocabulary? So I want you to look at this definition or this division. Think about a cake, and that cake is going to have 3 tiers: tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. The tier 1 are those basic words, like chair, big, friend, rise, mom, up, down. And those tier words those tier 1 words is the vocabulary that we're going to be using with infants and young toddlers, right? That is going to be the foundation. But then we're going to move to the tier 2 words. It is a little bit complex. Those are rich words. For example, combine, similar, occupied, explore, frustrated, excited. These tier 2 words, we're going to use them with the students that are older. And because these words, we want them to use them more often. And the tier 3 words are this low frequency. These words, we use them in a specific context. For example, photosynthesis, botany, metamorphosis, we don't use them often, but we are going to use them in a specific context. we want to expose kids to all these tier words, but we are going to be focusing on tier 1 and tier 2 words. So now we're going to go by age. What are going to be a good words for kids? So vocabulary for infants, 0 to 1. And when I say 3 to 5, with little kids, we just want to go just little. Let's just think about 3 words that you can focus in a week with those kids. And those can be family, share, and together. Those are tier 1 words. Easy, foundation. But we want them to be, exposed to those words often. And these 3 words are coming from this book that is called Families. This is a nonfiction book that is showing kids real pictures of a family. But family like fish family, different types of family, and kids can see it. So now we're going to talk about the vocabulary we can use with kids from 2 to 3 years old. These words are going to be a little bit more complex. These are going to be tier 2 words. And these words are coming from this book, Salsa Lullaby. And these words are excited, relaxed, calm, and delighted. Yes, we can go then to the other words. And now let's see a vocabulary with kids 3 to 5 years old. Again, this is still our tier 2 words, but there's a little bit complexity with this. Just our cherish, splendid, disappointed, accept, and expectations. Think about an anchor book and choosing the words and knowing what are the words and thinking about those connected activities help us to understand that when we're doing an activity with the kids, we're going to be using these words. Because remember, with an anchor book, what we want to do is to provide a good amount of opportunities to kids to be able to listen those words, but also to use them. And activities are the best place for kids to use them and to listen. So when we say a connected activity to a book, we can think about, again, ugly vegetables. If you want to create an activity that is going to be math activity, you can be using, you can be asking children to make a pattern, and you can provide them plastic fruits and vegetables. And during the activity, you're going to be using some of these words, not all of them, because, it can be a little bit tricky. But the idea is like the kids during that activity are going to be listening to these words, but also you're going to provide the opportunity to use them. So now we're going to practice about these tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 words. This is the book, That's Not My Name. And this book, it can be a book that we can use with 3 to 5 years old and can be connected to the theme, me and my family. And what you're going to be doing, or what you're going to do, is you're going to read these 2 pages, and then in the chat, you are going to choose one tier 2 word that you think is good for kids 3 to 5. So I'm going to read it. Then you're going to be choosing the word, a tier 2 word for 3 to 5s, and you can drop it in the chat. So Mirha means happiness in Arabic. Mama say, the first time I heard your laugh, I knew that it fit you perfectly. I know your name is different from your classmates, but that isn't a bad thing. It just means that it's unique and special. So now I see people typing the word unique. Yes, that is a really good tier 2 word. Perfect. Yes. Different. Yes. So those are tier 2 words that we're going to be using with kids. And we are going to be exposing them. And we want also them to use them and expressing themselves. Yes, spatial too, unique. Good. Those are tier 2 words. Yes. Happy, perfect, yes. Thank you. So I think we can go to the next slide. So now, Jessica.
Thanks, Deanna. All right. So now that we've talked a little bit about what these words look like and what an anchor book is, we want to dive a little bit deeper into how you might use these in your multi-aged homes. Because we know and understand that some of you have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 18-month-old, and 2 7-month-olds. So you have the wide range in your home of children of different ages who are needing these different books. And like Deanna said, the anchor book is what anchors us into a theme. So just for example, for today, we're talking about the theme of families. So what does it mean to be a family? Who is in my family? And how can we use maybe more than one book to anchor us in the theme, depending on the age level of the children in your home? And we also realize with you guys with family childcare homes, no 2 homes are going to look alike. You all have a different mix of children with different ages and different backgrounds. And so we want to provide you today with a variety of options from which to choose when you're using some anchor books and that vocabulary. So since we're talking about families and who is in our family, we saw earlier that the book that is called Families that could be used for your infants. And then this book, Salsa Lullaby, is targeted on Cox campus for our older toddlers, which would be our 2-year-olds up through 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds can kind of go either way, depending on where they are in that 3-year age span. And then we have that book that is called Saturday that we put with our family, who's in my family and what is a family theme for our 4 and 5-year-olds. It's a bit more sophisticated. But we chose today to listen to the one in the middle, the one for the 2 and 3-year-olds, Salsa Lullaby. So the words that we have paired with this at Cox campus are the words excited, relaxed, calm, and delighted. So those are the tier 2 words that would go along with this book. You might not hear those 4 words in the book. We might have to look for ways that we can use those words on different pages if the vocabulary is fairly simple in the book. So today we're going to listen to this, and when we're finished, we can talk a little bit about how we might use those words, relaxed, calm, excited, and delighted, as we talk to children about this anchor book. So Trina, if you want to go ahead and play this, then we'll listen in and go from there.
Mommy starts a salsa song. Poppy keeps the beat. Baby loves this lullaby, moves those dancing feet. Baila, baby, baila. Dance, dance, dance. Look, they're all dancing. Even the dog is dancing. Mommy glides across the floor. Poppy sets the pace. Baby sings la 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 and makes a silly face. Canta, baby, canta. Sing, sing, sing. Mommy lifts her arms up high. Poppy spins and twists. Baby bounces happily, waves those little fists. Salta, baby, salta. Jump, jump, jump. Mommy sways more slowly now. Poppy dims the light. Baby watches sleepily. Soon it will be night. Mira, baby, mira. Look, look, look. Mommy cuddles baby close. Poppy's voice gets deep. A slow salsa lullaby. Baby falls asleep. Duerme, baby, duerme. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Buenas noches. Good night. And look, the baby is dreaming of riding his stuffed dog while his pet dog chases after them. The end.
Thank you, Trina, for sharing that. So we didn't hear, this is Salsa Lullaby. I saw somebody had asked in the chat by Jenna Reyna. And earlier in the chat, we dropped in links to these books on Cox campus, where they have a guide in the vocabulary. So that's within your chat too. So as you're listening to the book and as you're seeing different places where maybe we could use the word calm and excited, maybe relaxed or delighted, well, let's just take about half a minute and drop in the chat like when maybe you could use those words. So I was thinking the baby was very delighted to dance with his or her mom and dad before the bedtime. So when could you maybe use the words relaxed or calm, delighted, excited? You can drop it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want to just call it out, if that's easier. Okay, during rest time, when discussing those feelings, absolutely. Oh, right. So talking about the kids in your home, I'm delighted to feed you. You look calm right now in any daily conversation. Perfect. I love this. Morning meeting, diaper change, before bed or bath. You can use these words. You guys are pros at using tier 2 words across the day. Perfect. Yep, you use the words respectfully when observing them, or if you want them to calm down during circle time. You guys have wonderful ideas. Relaxing during story time. Thank you for sharing all of those ideas. So we can go ahead and jump to the next screen. And one of the tools that we like to use when we're planning activities and planning how to use language is a bubble map. And so what we do with a bubble map, and some of you may be familiar with this, Trina has dropped a link to a blank fillable bubble map in the chat so that you can copy or kind of tag that for your use. But what we like to do is encourage teachers and home providers to plan intentionally to use the language throughout the day from an anchor book. And you all are in a unique position because you have the range of vocabulary to use in your home. Your infants may need to hear words like sleep and nap, while your 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds need to hear excited and delighted and more complex words on a regular basis. So we encourage the use of a bubble map is just an easy way to sort of plan for how you might use these words at different times of the day. And so we'll talk a little bit about this and then give you guys the opportunity to practice using a bubble map. One thing I will say about the bubble maps, this is small. This is just your 8.5, 11 by 11 piece of paper, that you print out and that you write on. But we have, I'm located in pretty northern Alabama, and we have some family childcare homes here in the state of Alabama that have taken the bubble map and recreated it on poster board. And they laminated it and hang it on the walls of their home so that they can just use a dry erase marker, fill in the vocabulary and the books for each week or 2 weeks, however they decide to handle anchor books based on the specific children of their home. And then they have that visual reminder of, oh, I wanted to use this word at this time. And so they can always see that, but also parents can see it. So like Alice was talking about at Cox Campus, we value these family connections and taking this vocabulary and the language partners throughout a child's whole whole life at home, at school, wherever they are. And so this gives the parents a way to interact. So that is full credit to my friends at Family Childcare Partnerships out of Auburn. But they have been very successful with that. So here's the parts of the bubble map that we're going to talk about. We're going to sort of go through the different pieces, but you can see you put your focus book or books if you have multiple age levels for a particular theme or inquiry question here in the middle. You put your focus vocabulary up in the top corner. And then this word bank is simply some ideas of different times of day. Your day and your schedule might look different than this. And so you do not have to use these times of day. Make it work for how your children need to hear the vocabulary. We know that children need to hear vocabulary words a minimum of 12 times for them to make it their own. And so we want to use those words so often in different meaningful parts of the day. So let's look a little bit deeper. At the next slide, we'll talk a bit about where we might put our anchor books. So this is just a zoom in on our next slide of the circle in the middle. So if our inquiry question or our theme was who is in my family and what makes up a family, these are the 3 focus books that I might use. Now, it does not matter if your 4-year-olds listen to Salsa Lullaby, even though it's targeted at 2-year-olds, right? They're hearing the rhythm, they're hearing the rhyming words, they're enjoying a story. There are many reasons that we read to children, but we want to make sure that our 4-year-olds are also hearing Saturday with that rich vocabulary. By the same token, our infants are maybe not only listening to families. Perhaps you're holding an infant or the infant is in a swing while you're reading Saturday to your older children. So you have the freedom to make this work for your home and for your children. The important part is that our kids hear these books multiple times for their age level and get the words that they need to really enhance their vocabulary. So then we might look at the focus vocabulary. So you can see here, this is a much longer list than we would suggest for a classroom teacher, because a classroom teacher only has one age group. And so some of these words, your 4 and 5-year-olds will already be familiar with, and it won't be necessary to push them in with them. But some of these words are words that you really need to lift for your older children. And it's okay that your infants hear those words in conversation. So one thing I do want to point out is I did not take the whole vocabulary list from all 3 of those books, because it would be even longer than this. And so I was thinking through, okay, if I had a home and I had a mix of children in it, what might be the most beneficial to use? So you all, as the leaders and the teachers and the providers in your home, will decide what age are my children, where is their language, what vocabulary needs to be pushed in for them to really excel and be able to comprehend a wide range of vocabulary. So then what we'll look at is the next slide is just a couple of sample bubbles that I have filled in for Salsa Lullaby. And all of the other books for Saturday, just my theme about families. So I wanted to make these fairly simple using things that you are already doing, because sometimes teachers and providers will think, oh no, I have to spend all this money on teachers pay teachers, and I have to go on Pinterest, and I have to spend my weekends creating these elaborate ways to really use vocabulary with my students. And while that is fun, and if you would like to do that, that is a great tool to use. But we're talking about getting vocabulary to your students to really let them hear the vocabulary and make it their own. Because research has shown that comprehension in the older grades is very much dependent on a child's vocabulary. And we can start building that at these young ages so our children are deep readers when they're older. So maybe it's just at rest time, you give each child their cherished blanket or stuffed animal to help them become calm. And you use those words as you're tucking them in for rest time. You didn't have to create anything new, but you reminded yourself on the bubble map to use those words. Maybe on the playground, you're using the vocabulary together, excited and delighted, to talk about your feelings as you're preparing to go outside.
Jessica, can I say something here before I
Please.
forget? One of the ideas that I have used in my family care providers is like they got these tiny whiteboards and they write the words that they're going to be using during that week. And the next week they update it. And they have 2 or 3. I mean, you can get those Dollar Tree or something like that. And you update them every week and you can see them, because these words help us to also have conversations with them. That's all what I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, that is a great idea, Deanna. Yes, that's so helpful. Maybe even have them more than one place. Maybe in your kitchen, maybe by the back door, wherever you feel like you'll see them the most. So now that we've talked about bubble maps and the different components of it, we want to give you all a chance to really just practice with a bubble map. So we're going to go back to the Jamboard. If you can't access it, please just write it in the chat and we'll make sure that we share that out. But here in the Jamboard, you can see we have some bubbles. You'll use that sticky note feature again to drop some ideas for maybe an activity that you might use. And we can stick with the book that we looked at, Salsa Lullaby, since we all have listened to that together. And so your words will be relaxed, calm, excited, and delighted. So we're thinking of ways that we can use, and you guys gave some wonderful ideas earlier when we listened to the book. Let's just pop some different ideas, or even those same ones here in the bubble map or in the chat, for how we could use those vocabulary words when we're talking about family and using Salsa Lullaby. Yes, Alice, thank you for dropping those vocabulary words in the chat if we need those. We'll give a few minutes. We're watching the time. We know it's a Saturday morning, just to share some ideas.
One of the things, I click on the link and it's showing us the first Jamboard. So
thank you, Deanna.
Just maybe, where is that? Yes, we can move with those arrows and find the right one.
Super, thank you. Right, let's see here. We can think of some different times of day, perhaps at meal times. If you're thinking through that, when might you use, we might be having some audio issues. Okay. So feelings, Play-Doh maps, using words as they create emotions on their maps. Okay.
And someone said when entering the classroom in the morning.
I see it. I'm delighted that you're here today. I'm so excited for what we're going to do. During the morning meeting. Exactly. We can, leaving parents, exactly. Sometimes we can talk about calm circle time, morning meeting. Those are great times with your whole group. So the sticky note is right over to the side of the Jamboard. You can see under the arrow, there's a little square with a side folded up. If you click on that, you can access the sticky note. So, yep, if you're introducing a new topic, that's wonderful. I'm so excited. I'm delighted that we're going to be talking about butterflies, right? Calming your bodies, art time, everybody working together. These are wonderful ideas. And I love how they are ideas that you all can use intentionally at different times of the day without having to create new experiences or develop new materials for your students. Art time, absolutely. We're so excited to use our paints today, but we're going to keep our bodies calm and keep the paint on the paper. Right? Mm-hmm. So we can absolutely use these at all different times of the day. Cleanup time when you're getting ready to go home, and outdoor time. All of these ideas are wonderful. And again, as we use this vocabulary, we know our children need to hear it a minimum of 12 times for it to become their own. And what we're doing is building that foundation for them to be deep readers. They have all this vocabulary knowledge. They understand these words and they're able to use them. And so in 4 or 5 years, when they're reading a book and they come across something, they're going to understand what is going on in the text and be able to comprehend that. And become a very successful deep reader. So your work now matters for children's lives. All right, these are wonderful ideas. You guys had excellent, sing-alongs. We'll check one more time. Yoga sessions, movement, and music. Right, tie right in. And Salsa Lullaby really incorporated those Spanish words as well. So to tie those in for your children, even those who may not speak Spanish at home, to really give them an opportunity to hear words in another language and understand that others, there are different ways to say, dance, or sing. All right. And repeat it. It goes along with any learning experience. Thank you, Brenda. Yes.
And
right.
Jessica, another
Yes.
thing, I'm so sorry, just to jump in.
Go right ahead.
This is like something new in Cox campus. We have 2 courses in Spanish that are called Primeras Conversaciones and Primeras Lecturas. Primeras Lecturas is related to this content. So if you speak Spanish and you have population that speaks Spanish, so it'll be a good idea for you to take a look and take the course. And it's basically the same what we're talking here. It connects.
That's super. Thank you so much, Deanna. All right, you guys have wonderful ideas. We're going to pop to the next slide. But if you're in Jamboard, let's keep it open. Don't leave it right now, because the third slide in Jamboard, if you tap those arrows at the top, like Deanna just showed you, we would love to hear one thing that you can take away from today and implement in the next week. Something that you heard and you thought, this would work so beautifully in my home. Or I know some of you are mentors, and so you may not have a home of your home daycare of your own, but you may be a mentor and a coach to those who are providers in their homes. So we would just love to hear how you're going to use something, even something very small, just within the next week. So you may put it in the chat if you don't have access to the Jamboard, but if you do have access, just flip to that next slide and we can look there.
And someone said to use the bubble map. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I see the ideas and the books. That's perfect. So the books that we used today go with the family theme and the inquiry questions, but on Cox campus, you can find multitudes of books with, some of them have bubble maps already created for them. They have book guides that come with vocabulary already picked out. Though you guys did a wonderful job with Deanna's book and looking through and finding that vocabulary. So a book that you have, you can just find the vocabulary there.
Also in Cox, we have a book list of this. suggestions that you can use, and instead of themes, we got inquiry questions that basically can be your theme. So yes, go through Cox Campus and you will find many resources.
If you go into Cox Campus and in the search bar, if you were wanting to talk, this is a great time of year to talk. We're getting close to finishing up pumpkins, so you may have already planned all of that. But as we move into November, maybe you're wanting to talk about nutrition, our food, our gratitude. You can put some of those keywords into the search bar, and then you'll be able to see some of the books that might go along with that have some of the resources with them as well.
And someone said using the tier words or using the tier 1 word or tier 2 words at least 12 or more times a day. So yes, using those tier 1 and tier 2 words.
Oh, Deanna, somebody is talking about Arabic families and they're unable to read the text. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure, let me see. Bilingual Spanish be easier, but also have Arabic families. In those cases, and I have families, they have at least 3 or 4 languages at home. And it's difficult as a provider to learn all these different languages. But what you can do is use families to read those books. So maybe you can invite one of the parents one day to read the same book in Arabic. If the book is not coming in Arabic, the parent can just go through their pictures and read in Arabic. And now if you go to Amazon, or there are many places that I can't recall now, but you can find books in Arabic that you can share with parents. So I don't know if that's a response or answer to your question. Yes, I would say in those cases when we don't have many resources in different languages, families are the best connection that we have. Maybe you can ask the family to read the book in advance in Arabic. Now we have, it's easier to find the links on YouTube, so they can go through YouTube, find the book. The parent is going to be talking in Arabic, and then when the child goes to the school and you're going to read the same book in English, kids start making connections. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's one of the suggestions, and it seems like it helps.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you all. I'm going to turn it over to Alice, and we'll look at the next slides, get ready to wrap up our Saturday morning.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. I can tell by the chat that there have been some great takeaways using the tier 1 and tier 2 words, intentionally planning, using Anchor Book, and then of course using the bubble map, using those when you're inside, when you're outside, all throughout the day to help you plan, intentionally plan for those to push in language, those tier 1 and tier 2 words. Okay, it looks like we met our objective for today, which was to review integrated planning and teaching around an anchor book, and then the what and why of an anchor book, and to introduce you all to a bubble map and how to create a bubble map to share or intentionally plan activities to support your children in your care. Join us on February 24th between 10 and 11 a.m. for another session. And so someone asked in the chat, will there be additional sessions on Saturdays such as this? Absolutely. Deanna, Jessica, and myself will be back on February 24th at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with another enlightening session for you all. You can join Cox Campus again, www.coxcampus.org. It is free. So if you have not yet registered, please do so. You can download and review all of the resources that we shared with you today. And then, of course, join us and like us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session.